It's time to work on Blossoms and Swing, the last regular block of our Hoppin' Down the Bunny Trail bench pillow. It's time to start Blossoms and Swing. This is the last regular block of our bench pillow. It is on page 21, and both the background fabric as well as the other fabrics have been backed with fusible interfacing, and I have the batting. From the embellishment packet, I will be using the cork. Now this is the same tree that has the fringe flowers that we did for our very first block. The only difference is that this has a little bunny on a swing instead of a beehive. So let's get started on our last block. I've opened Embellishment's Essential software and I need to bring in the files for the Blossoms and Swing. Again, you can use the merge stitch file icon and navigate to where you keep your file, but an easier way is just to open the folder where you keep all of your files. I will open the quilting bundle and I need the chevron 4. I need the 4x8 horizontal. I'm using the 4x8 because this is the last block on the edge of our pillow, and both of these blocks on the right and left of the ends are smaller. So I need the horizontal, which is the first out of the two 4x8s. So I will drag and drop that into the hoop. Now I can go back to the embroidery files and I will bring in the Blossoms and Swing and drag and drop that into the hoop. Now, the last hoop that I used was a 5x7, and so I need to go up to the Preferences folder, and I need to change back to my 9x14. Now, I will come to this compass on the top right and select H, and that puts my whole 9x14 into the screen so it's easier for me to see. Now again, this is a block that we need to make some changes to. So the first thing I'm going to do is take out these placement lines. There's a placement line here, and the second step is the placement line around the tree. And remember, those are for someone who is not doing the background quilting block by block like we are doing. And then I'm going to check and see if there was one more. Nope. So those first two steps I need to delete. So I will select the first, hold my shift key down and select the second step and hit delete on my keyboard. If you are not working in software, which of course is totally optional, you will just skip those steps right at your machine when you're stitching this block out. Now the next thing we need to do is move this down. So I will select the embroidery file of the tree, and using my down arrow, I will move it down. The directions say for the bottom of the fence post to be a 1/2 inch from the bottom of the background quilting. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. There is going to be that glitter vinyl grass, but of course we do want to move it down. And this is our batting line, and that is 1/4 inch from the outside line of the background quilting. And so if I have the space between the bottom of the fence to this line about the same distance, that will be about 1/2 inch. And I'm going to call that good. Now, the only other thing I'm going to do, of course, is delete some of the steps of the background quilting. Again, this is optional. You can choose to run all 5 steps of the background quilting. I cut my batting to size, so I am going to select that second step, which is the tack down of the batting. When I cut my batting to size, that step won't really do anything for me because my batting's already cut to that size. So I will hit delete on my keyboard. And then the next step is the placement for the fabric. And of course, Kimberbell's fabric is much larger, and this is only about 1/4 of an inch past the batting line. And so that's a step that I just don't need. So I will select that and hit delete. The last thing I'm going to do is Command A on my Mac to select both designs. You can draw a selection box to select both of those. I am going to go to this rotate left so that it fits into my hoop better. Now I can go to File, Save Stitch File As, and name my design. I will save it to my USB and take it to my machine. So I am ready to stitch out the blossoms and swing, and I'm doing this a little bit out of order. If you can see here, I just finished my little clothesline, and I am going to put this next block on the top. Even though I have enough room to do the boot, I want to get the little tree done because I have 2 parts for the boot. But I wanted to just go over, because I think I've only said it once at the very beginning, when I add my USB, I have it plugged into this little cord that the cord is attached to my machine on the right hand side. So when I take in and out my USB, it's from a cord, and I don't plug a USB directly into the side of my machine. And the reason is because that's just less wear and tear on the port. This little pigtail cord always is attached to my machine, and so I don't pull in and out, and that's less chance that something's going to happen to that port. So I've just finished stitching out this block, and I need to add my little blossom tree. I am going to select OK and return. And let me put my hoop back on. And now I need to go to add. I want to leave this here to make sure that I'm not overlapping when I start stitching out. So I will select add. I will go to my USB and to my combined files folder. And I'm going to bring in the blossom tree and hit set. Now, of course, they always come in centered, and so that's why I wanted to leave this last block on. So now I'm going to choose edit, and because that tree is the last that I brought in, it is selected. I will go to move, and then I can move it up. Now I don't need to go to the top of the hoop. Again, I could have put the bigger block with the boot. The boot is the same size as this block. Remember, the tree blocks are smaller, but I am going to do the boot separate since it's 2 parts. So I really could go to the top. I'm at the very end of my piece of muslin, so it doesn't really matter. So I'll just leave it there. Maybe I'll just go up a little bit more. And I will select OK. Now, before I select embroidery, I do need to get rid of this. So I will select this block and hit delete. Of course, it asked me if I wanted to delete. I will say yes. And now I know that I'm ready to stitch this block. Now I can choose embroidery, and we can start on this block. So I'm getting ready to stitch the little swing seat out, and the fabric that I have in my packet is this little light color fabric. And I think that's wrong. If you remember, or if you've seen my mushroom house, I made a note when I was stitching this out that I thought I picked up the wrong fabric, and I did. So this little dark piece that's the same color as the big mushroom should be for the swing, and this little piece that I have for the swing should have been the bottom of this mushroom. I don't think it really matters. The swing is tiny, but I think because the bunny and this are kind of close, I pulled an extra piece of fabric from my fabric that I cut. Remember, I said I keep all of my extra fabric just in the little box that it comes in when I get a fabric kit. And there was this little tiny piece. It's not backed, and I'm not going to worry about backing it. It's just a little tiny rectangle. But this is why I keep even small things, I keep them all together while I'm doing the project for exactly this reason. So this just fits width-wise, and I'm going to use the color that it called for. Again, it's not backed, but I'm okay with that. So I'm going to continue. I just got done stitching the cork on for the fence, and like the first tree, I am not going to cut this until I'm completely done and this block is out of the hoop. I just found that much easier, so I'm just going to leave that in. Now, all we have left to do is the fringe flowers and then trim this to size. I am going to start with this cute little bunny tail. That's super cute. So I'm just going to wet it and let those start to dissolve. And then again, I'm using just a plastic bent needle that I use when I crochet, and it has a blunt end so it won't catch or poke any threads. And then I will just wiggle it and release those threads. going to start wetting this flour up here so that can be starting to soak. I'm just going to do a couple at a time. That's super cute. Cute little tail. All right, I'll get started on the flowers. So here is our cute fringe tree. Again, those are so cute. And the little tail on the bunny. Now, because this background quilting goes into the seam allowance, I'm not going to worry about taking out my basting. I will just kind of use that as a guide. I am going to give it a press, and we can get this cut to size. So it's time to trim the last tree, and I am going to just measure the first tree that I did. I think the directions said to do a 1/2 inch from the bottom of the fence post to the cut line. I didn't measure mine, perfectly. The first one we did all in the machine, and the second I did in software, but either way, when I moved the block down, I didn't measure exactly. So I measured from this first block. This bottom line of stitching is part of the quilting, and so mine measures 3/8 of an inch from that bottom stitching of the quilting to the cut line. So I'm just going to do the same. I don't think my fences are quite even. This one's a little bit higher, but again, we're going to have that glitter grass over, and so it doesn't need to be perfect, and they're also on both ends of the pillow. So I am just going to measure down the same amount from that bottom quilting stitch. And this is a block that does not have one ruler that will cut this block. If you remember the first block, the height of this larger ruler is the height of our block, and then the width of the one that's just smaller is the width of the block. And they talk about nesting and aligning. I find that it's easier to do one at a time and not nest. So for the width of the block, I am lining my ruler up at the bottom so that it's straight.